If I'm having you watch the screencast, it means that it looked like you still had a little bit of trouble with identifying transitions and the types of sentences on the activity for center number 2. So this is going to go through the corrections, and I want you to make corrections on your paper. And I'm going to show you how I want you to be coding these things. It's the same things that we've been doing all year, but if you're turning in a blank piece of paper with just a letter at the front of the sentence, it's showing me that you're really not taking the time to think about what each of the parts of a sentence are, and that might be why you're having a little trouble. So I started you off by having you look for text clues. When you're just looking at the sentence, what are some things to look for in a positive? And so we have said that you look for a noun that has a comma right after it, and then some type of phrase with a noun, another noun in it, because that noun is going to rename or describe your first one. If it's at the beginning of the sentence, then you'll see a pair of commas like this. If it's at the end of the sentence, you might have just a comma here and a period at the end. Okay, for an adverb, the only types of adverbs we've been looking at right now are single words, so one word at the beginning of a sentence. Sometimes they begin with an ly. For an infinitive, we've been coding them by putting brackets around them, and they are to plus a verb. Okay, so you always look for the word right after the to and decide if the word next to it is a verb, then it's an infinitive. If you see the word the after it, you know it's not going to be a verb, and it's going to probably be a prepositional phrase. So a prepositional phrase starts with a preposition, is allowed to have some modifiers in there. Doesn't have to be, but usually there are. And then it will end with a noun or a pronoun. And the big thing we know is that there are no verbs. And then the compound sentence is the newest one that we've been talking about. And for a compound sentence, we are looking for a subject plus a verb, which tells us we have a complete sentence, followed by a comma with one of our fanboys, and then another complete idea with a subject and a verb. Right now, the big thing to look for is this comma fanboy. And then figurative language, the different types, we've been just starting with poetry review, simile, metaphors, hyperbole, allusions are the big thing we're talking about right now, symbolism, personification, okay? So this is what the top part of your paper should look like. Now I'm going to show you a little strategy that you could do. So as you're going through these parts of the sentences, I would pick one of these things that you know the best. So the thing that I think would be the easiest to find is looking at the beginning of the sentence to see if there's one word or an ly. If I look at sentence number 1, I can tell that's not going to be an adverb because it has 2 words. If I look down here, I see no comma with one single word, so that's not going to be an adverb. Here, I see a name. I know a name isn't going to be an adverb, so I would keep going through this list until I found a single word at the beginning, and here I see the word cautiously. Cautiously ends in an ly. That tells me it's an adverb, so the correct answer for this one should have been B. Continuing on, I don't see any other single word adverbs. That doesn't mean there might not be another one, I just don't see it right now. And so I would go on to the next one. The next one that I think I know pretty well are infinitives, because I know that the very first word I'm looking for has to be the word to. So that eliminates number 1. It eliminates 3 and 4 and 5. So I could go through and eliminate and look at which ones it has to be. So I see to here. So now I need to see, is the word after to a verb? To look. Is that something that I can do? To look? And it is. So number 2 should be C for an infinitive. Would keep going through my list till I see a 2. I see another 2 here. To be. I know be is a verb. It's one of those linking verbs we had to memorize. So that would be an infinitive. To again. To protect. I ask myself, is protect something that could be a verb? Oh, and I didn't really tell you, but what I would do then is go through here and put my brackets around them. I know that this is an infinitive, And that's how we've been coding them. Now I won't confuse it with something else. So to protect. I can protect. That's an action. So this one must be a C as well. To again. To feed. Is feed something that I could do? That's an action. To feed. So that one must be an infinitive. To again. To my. Is my a verb? Can you my? That doesn't sound like a verb. So I know right away that this one has to be a prepositional phrase. And what we've been doing with prepositional phrases is highlighting them. So, and I can go ahead and label that one with a D. I could take the time right now to go through and look for my prepositions if I remember them. I remember in is a preposition. In life, I see the comma there. So that tells me it's an intro prep phrase. John A. Cliff, John isn't a preposition. Father's not a preposition. In is, it was a preposition up here, so it's going to be a preposition here. In the absence, and I actually see two prepositional phrases. And of Lord Furnival. You'll see that when there are two prepositional phrases put together, the comma goes at the end of the last one. Okay, so that one's going to have to be a D. I, it, and it. So I look like I am done with my prepositional phrases. So really the two big ones that I have left here are positive and compound sentence. It seems to me that we're having a lot of trouble with the positive, so I would just leave that one to the end. Let's go look for any commas with fanboys in the middle of a sentence. So I see John A. Cliff, I see a comma, but there's no fanboy after it because it has the word the. I see another comma here with appeared after it, but that's not a fanboy. Let's go to the next one. I see a comma and. I know comma and. I'm going to use a different color. If I were writing on this, I would probably circle it because I know that I want to show it in a different way. So comma and. I still want to double check though that I have a subject and a verb on both sides. Father Quinnell is the subject, must have known is the verb, and then on the other side of my comma fanboy, he is a subject and was killed is my verb. Okay, so that's got to be a compound sentence. I was stunned, comma, but. See that comma fanboy right there. Still want to double check. Do I have a subject and a verb on the left? I was. And do I have a subject and a verb on the other side? I had. So that's going to be a compound sentence. Oops, I labeled that right. Going to the next one. I had come upon something much like a church, comma, but. I see a comma fanboy. I want to see, is there a subject and a verb on this side? I had. And then a subject on the verb on the other side, it was. So that looks like a compound sentence to me. I see comma the and comma the again. And the is not one of our fanboys because the reason we say fanboys is because it has the first letter of each of them. So now I'm left looking for my appositives. So for an appositive, I need a comma as well, but it needs to come right after a noun. So I'm looking for a noun with a comma that has a phrase describing it. So I see John A. Cliff with a comma, and let's see, I'll use aqua for these. The steward of the manor. I've got a phrase describing who John A. Cliff is. In case I wasn't reading that book or I was trying to tell somebody else, I had give a little extra information within that appositive. And I'm left with 13. So I see it now belongs to his widow, comma. So I see a noun with a comma after it. And the Lady Furnival renames who that noun is. So that's a positive. And the last one, I see John A. Cliff again with a comma after it, the steward of Stromford Village. And I know that that one's got to be an appositive because it was up above. Okay, so when you turn your paper back into me, this is what your answers should look like. And I would expect to see some highlighting, Hopefully this strategy will help you going through process of elimination. Do the ones that you know first to make it easier and get rid of the ones you know that are easier, and then leave the harder ones for the end. Okay?